On November 25, 2022, at approximately 8:23 p.m., former military contractor Jamal Porter, 38, resident of Cleveland, Ohio, sat at his dining table after Thanksgiving dinner, observing the body of his wife, Valerie Porter, 34, a hospital orderly, lying on the kitchen floor under a sheet placed by paramedics. According to the incident report filed by officers Brad Hansen, 41, and Jason Reeves, 36, they attempted to arrest Valerie for interference with a police investigation. Their official statement claimed she resisted, requiring the use of a taser. The medical examiner's measurements later indicated 17 electrical burn marks across her arms, legs, back, and abdomen. Valerie had type 1 diabetes. She died from cardiac arrest induced by repeated electrical shocks. Jamal remained in the dining room, unable to reconcile the circumstances. He had completed 2 combat tours in Afghanistan between 2010 and 2014, and later worked under private contracts overseas. His financial stability was consistent with that employment history. Thanksgiving dinner had been uneventful until the officers forced entry. Valerie had no criminal record, no warrants, and no ongoing investigations. Attorney Clarissa Jones, 45, agreed to represent Jamal after reviewing early documentation. Her preliminary examination of the autopsy photographs showed deep wrist abrasions consistent with prolonged handcuff pressure, bruising on the knees, and blunt force trauma to the face. The medical examiner, speaking off record to her, stated, "This is not an arrest gone wrong. This is torture. The pattern of applications is deliberate." The first irregularity appeared when a neighbor, Eric Donnelly, 52, a warehouse worker living 2 houses away, provided Jamal with footage from his outdoor security camera. The recording clearly showed Hansen and Reeves arriving at 7:47 p.m., parking directly across from the Porter residence. The official dispatch log, however, listed a 911 call time-stamped 8:02 p.m. The officers had been on site 15 minutes before any call existed. During that period, the officers remained inside their vehicle, observing the house without initiating contact. Attorney Jones obtained call routing data through a private investigator. The second discrepancy emerged immediately. The 911 call did not originate from a local resident. It originated from a prepaid mobile phone, purchased 2 months earlier under a fake registration. The nearest cell tower placed the caller at an intersection where another patrol unit had been stationed. No citizen complaint was filed. The conclusion was simple. The pretext for intervention had been manufactured. Jamal reviewed Valerie's phone while sorting her belongings for evidence. In the storage folder, he found dozens of unread messages from unknown numbers. The threats spanned 3 weeks. "Tell your husband to pay the debt. Your rich hubby thinks he's untouchable. We know where your sister Diana works." Valerie had not shown him the messages. Jamal later stated he believed she did not want to aggravate his stress level during a period of sporadic contract work. After reading them, he immediately contacted his sister, Diana Porter, 30, a preschool assistant in Akron, instructing her to stay with relatives until further notice. A neighbor, Linda Morales, 48, part-time cashier, reported an earlier interaction around 6:20 p.m. She observed Officer Hansen approach Valerie in the front yard as Valerie disposed of a bag of trash. According to Morales, the conversation lasted less than 30 seconds. Valerie shook her head, stepped back, and returned indoors quickly. Morales did not hear the exchange, but recalled Hansen's posture as pressuring, and Valerie appearing uncomfortable. Jamal contacted a former acquaintance from overseas work, an anonymous cybersecurity specialist, who helped bypass Hansen's cloud security linked to his department-issued phone. The accessed files contained photographs of Jamal's house, detailed interior images, and a hand-drawn floor plan of the basement. The photos were time-stamped November 10, 18, indicating prior surveillance of the Porter residence. Among these files was an audio recording labeled 11/25/22/2014, lasting 11 minutes. The contents directly contradicted the officer's official statements. Valerie's voice is heard immediately. She cries out in distress, stating repeatedly that she is diabetic and needs insulin. Hansen's voice demands, "Where's your husband? Where does he keep the money? Talk, bitch!" A taser discharge follows, then a scream. Another male voice, matching Reeves's profile, says, "Brad, stop. She's losing consciousness. Hansen replies, she knows the safe code. Another shock is applied. Valerie attempts to respond but deteriorates rapidly. The final minute contains no intelligible vocalization from her. The last statement on the recording is Hansen. That's it. She's dead. Reeves, find tools. We'll break the safe ourselves. The recovered audio eliminated any uncertainty. Valerie had been tortured for information about a safe code she did not possess. The background noise matched the acoustics of Jamal's basement. At 2:11 a.m. on November 26, 2022, Jamal went downstairs to verify the condition of the safe. It had been forced open. The approximately $30,000 in cash and $80,000 in gold he had accumulated during contract work were gone. A crowbar and an angle grinder, both recently used, lay on the floor. The evidence indicated that the officers had completed the robbery after Valerie's death. Jamal then remembered a hidden camera he had installed 3 years earlier inside a ventilation duct above the safe, following advice from a former colleague who believed in preparing for targeted thefts. The device recorded to a local SD card and had no wireless features. The officers had not noticed it. At 2:24 a.m., Jamal removed the camera and reviewed the video files. A recording stamped 8:03 p.m. on November 25th showed Hansen and Reeves entering the basement, while pulling Valerie, whose hands were cuffed behind her. Her condition indicated hypoglycemia. The video captured her repeatedly attempting to explain that she required insulin, but both officers ignored the statement. Hansen insisted she reveal the safe code. Valerie tried to communicate that she did not know it, consistent with the fact that Jamal had kept the combination private. At 8:06 p.m., Hansen activated the taser against her back. Additional shocks occurred at 8:09, 8:12, and 8:15, each time following demands for the code. Reeves appeared hesitant but complied when Hansen instructed him to restrain her. Over the course of 47 minutes, the camera recorded 17 taser applications, interrupted by comments from Hansen, asserting his belief that she was withholding information. Valerie became incoherent by 8:41 p.m., collapsed at 8:45, and remained without medical assistance. At 8:50, Hansen checked her pulse, concluded she had died, and instructed Reeves to retrieve tools so they could open the safe. The footage then showed them removing the contents. Jamal replayed the footage multiple times. The conclusion was clear. Valerie died while attempting to withstand pressure for information she did not have. While documenting the timeline, Jamal recalled that Valerie had been a witness in a municipal corruption case in 2017 involving Hansen and Reeves. She had worked as a clerk in a city office, and her testimony contributed to their temporary suspension. After the case collapsed, she resigned under pressure. Reviewing the video and the history, Jamal concluded that resentment from that period likely contributed to the brutality displayed in the basement. A separate detail emerged when he reviewed recent household service records. In August 2022, a plumber who had come to address a minor leak spent notable time in the basement. The invoice listed the company owner as Daniel Reeves, the younger brother of Officer Jason Reeves. Considering the later discovery of interior photographs in Hansen's cloud account, Jamal concluded that the plumbing visit served as reconnaissance. The plumber likely documented the safe and passed the information to his brother. The event chain now aligned logically: reconnaissance by Reeves's brother, identification of a financially viable target, motive linked to prior testimony, a fabricated emergency call, coercive force used to obtain a non-existent code, and the subsequent theft. At 3:17 a.m., a knock at the door interrupted Jamal's review. He approached with a firearm and opened the door to find Detective Cain, 42, who displayed a Cleveland police badge. His appearance suggested prolonged fatigue and operational strain. Cain stated that he had been monitoring Jamal for a week to confirm he was not acting impulsively. He reported that he knew Hansen and Reeves had killed Valerie during a robbery. Cain explained that 1 month earlier, Hansen had attempted to recruit him into a plan targeting a former contractor believed to keep large sums of cash at home. Cain had refused, and subsequently began recording conversations with Hansen. Cain described his career: 15 years in the department, with the last 5 spent under restricted duties after he attempted to expose misconduct in the 2017 corruption case, the same case involving Valerie. He said he felt personal responsibility for the outcome and for his inability to protect her. He then summarized one of the recorded conversations. Hansen had spoken in a bar about Valerie, referring to her as the city employee whose testimony had once caused him and Reeves professional consequences. Hansen explained that his brother had recently confirmed the existence of a safe in the Porter basement. He estimated its contents at over $100,000 and said he intended to take it with Reeves. He also stated that the proceeds would be divided among himself, Reeves, and Captain Richard Stone, their superior, with Stone directing the plan. Jamal reacted immediately upon hearing Stone's involvement. Cain affirmed that Stone had not merely approved the operation, but had structured it from the beginning. After presenting the initial evidence, Cain explained the broader structure behind the events. He stated that Captain Richard Stone, 55, was the organizer and strategic planner of the operation. According to Cain, Stone accessed police databases to review Jamal's background, noting his past military contracting work, the high income associated with it, and the likelihood that he stored valuable assets at home due to frequent travel and limited trust in institutions. When Daniel Reeves informed his brother about the safe during the plumbing visit, Stone identified the residence as a viable target. Cain described how Stone constructed the plan: track Jamal's expected business trips through internal systems, wait for a period when Jamal was listed as out of town, generate a fabricated emergency call to justify police entry, neutralize Valerie to remove resistance, and access the safe under the appearance of an official arrest. Cain said Stone predetermined the division of stolen assets, assigning 30% to Hansen, 30% to Reeves, 30% to himself, and 10% to Daniel Reeves for locating the target. Jamal's unexpected early return disrupted that structure. Cain stated that Stone now faced the risk of exposure and therefore posed danger to anyone connected to the operation. Cain then presented additional documentation. He had secretly copied Stone's bank statements from internal files. A transaction recorded on November 26 showed a $10,000 deposit, which he believed represented Stone's portion of the proceeds. Cain also revealed that Stone had purchased plane tickets scheduled for December 15, a one-way itinerary to Mexico, indicating preparation to leave the country within 3 weeks. Cain emphasized that the available time to act was limited. He then addressed why he had not contacted federal authorities. Cain stated that he had attempted to submit anonymous evidence to the FBI on 2 occasions, but both submissions disappeared without acknowledgement. He attributed this to Stone's influence, noting that Stone's brother worked in the prosecutor's office and a former colleague served as a judge. According to Cain, the internal system protected Stone, prevented outside intervention, and made formal justice unattainable. He added that his involvement in trying to support the 2017 corruption investigation, the same case in which Valerie testified, had resulted in his demotion and a stalled career. He regarded Valerie's death as a personal failure he felt obligated to correct. Cain made clear that any direct confrontation with Hansen, Reeves, or Stone would place both him and Jamal outside legal boundaries and classify them as fugitives. He stated there would be no return to ordinary life after such a step. Jamal reviewed the recording of Valerie's torture and death and came to a decision. He intended to eliminate all 3 participants. Cain placed an unregistered Sig Sauer pistol on the table and advised beginning with a structured plan. He then summarized the operational data on each target. Hansen lived alone and followed a consistent nightly routine, running at 10 p.m. along an area with minimal pedestrian activity. Reeves lived in a small apartment with his wife and 2 children. Cain stressed that the family must not be involved. Stone lived in a large monitored residence outside the city, supported by private security and cameras. The recommended plan involved isolating Hansen and Reeves first, extracting security details regarding Stone's home, and approaching Stone only after gathering sufficient information. While they reviewed logistical maps and schedules, at 9:42 p.m., Jamal received a phone call from Reeves. Jamal placed the call on speaker. Reeves sounded distressed. He stated that Hansen had become convinced that Jamal was conducting his own investigation and intended to kill him before he could act. Reeves also insisted that Valerie's death had not been his intention, and that Hansen had escalated force beyond what Reeves expected. He claimed to possess material implicating Hansen and Stone. Reeves urged Jamal to meet him at 11 p.m. in the parking lot of a warehouse on Industrial Street and insisted that the meeting take place without police involvement. He framed the meeting as the only opportunity to prevent further violence from Hansen. The call ended abruptly. Before leaving for the meeting, Jamal prepared equipment he considered necessary. A Glock fitted with a suppressor, a fixed-blade knife, body armor under his jacket, and an earpiece linked to Cain's radio channel. Cain positioned himself on the roof of an abandoned factory opposite the warehouse lot, approximately 150 meters away, equipped with a Remington 700 fitted for long-range surveillance. Cain planned to maintain overwatch and record all activity for evidence. Their strategy required Jamal to appear compliant in order to provoke Reeves into revealing operational details, while Cain monitored for Hansen, whose presence was considered likely. At 11:00 p.m., Jamal entered the warehouse parking lot. The area was mostly empty except for scattered cargo pallets and an unused trailer. Cain informed him through the earpiece that he observed no immediate threats. After several seconds, Reeves emerged from the shadows near the loading dock. His movements appeared tense, and he maintained distance as he approached, halting approximately 5 meters from Jamal. Cain reported that Reeves appeared unstable, and Jamal advanced the plan by remaining still. Reeves began to recount his version of events, claiming that Hansen had acted unpredictably, and that he, Reeves, had attempted to stop him during the incident with Valerie. Reeves alleged that he possessed a recording in which Hansen admitted coordination with Captain Stone, and said he wished to cooperate in exchange for leniency. Jamal responded by displaying a phone screen that contained a paused frame showing Reeves applying a taser to Valerie's back. Jamal stated that Reeves was responsible for 11 of the shocks, and that his earlier claims conflicted with recorded evidence. Reeves appeared shocked and attempted to justify his actions by citing pressure from Hansen, personal debts, and a lack of intent to kill Valerie. Jamal asked where the stolen money and gold were located. Reeves realized negotiation would fail and moved his hand toward a concealed handgun. Jamal fired first, striking Reeves in the knee. Reeves collapsed and began crying out in pain. Jamal placed pressure on the injured leg and demanded full disclosure. Reeves, visibly distressed, surrendered information. The stolen property was allegedly at Hansen's residence in the basement behind a shelving unit, and Stone had taken his portion and stored it in his home safe, which Reeves identified by code. Cain then reported sudden movement at the north side of the lot. Headlights switched on abruptly, illuminating the area. Hansen, who had apparently been concealed behind a parked trailer, stepped out with a shotgun pointed at Jamal. Hansen ordered Jamal to disarm. Cain notified Jamal that he had a clear shot. A moment later, Cain fired a round that struck Hansen in the shoulder, disabling his ability to aim. Jamal advanced, using the brief disorientation to strike Hansen with the grip of the Glock, causing him to lose consciousness. Inside the garage, Jamal secured both men to chairs. Reeves continued crying and appeared panicked. Hansen, despite injuries, maintained a confrontational demeanor. Jamal arranged several tools on a table: pliers, a hammer, a blowtorch, and a knife. Cain stood in the corner, turned away from the scene, stating that he would not interfere but would document outcomes. Jamal focused first on Hansen, stating that Hansen had subjected Valerie to 47 minutes of escalating force while she begged for assistance. Jamal then activated the blowtorch and applied heat to Hansen's hand for several seconds until Hansen began screaming and lost composure. Reeves yelled that he would provide everything they needed and repeated the claim that Stone stored money in a wall-mounted safe at his residence. He also reiterated that Hansen stored the stolen gold in his basement. Jamal asked Reeves how many times he personally activated the taser against Valerie. Reeves answered tearfully that he had delivered 11 shocks under orders from Hansen. Jamal then returned attention to Hansen and asked how many applications he had delivered. Hansen remained silent, prompting Jamal to use the pliers to break a finger on Hansen's left hand. Hansen eventually responded, stating that he had administered 17 shocks and expressed resentment toward Valerie from the earlier corruption investigation. Hansen added that he had become angry when she insisted she did not know the safe code. Jamal paused at the implication that Valerie had deserved the treatment she received. He raised the Glock toward Hansen's head, but hesitated. Cain reminded him that committing an execution would make him irreversibly a murderer. Jamal appeared to experience a moment of internal conflict before firing. Hansen died instantly. Reeves began yelling that Jamal had previously implied he would be spared. Jamal turned, expression unchanged, and fired again. Reeves died immediately. Cain pointed out that Jamal had now killed 2 police officers and crossed the final legal boundary. Jamal responded that he had passed the irreversible point when he watched the recording of Valerie's torture. Cain did not dispute it. Jamal recovered Hansen's phone from the body and unlocked it. The latest message was from Captain Stone and indicated that Stone was awaiting confirmation that Jamal had been neutralized and expected a meeting to divide Jamal's assets the following morning. Cain checked the phone's GPS logs and confirmed Stone's current location at his residence. He warned Jamal that confronting Stone at a fortified property with guards and surveillance systems amounted to a high-risk assault. Jamal stated that he had experience conducting forced entries during combat deployments and viewed immediate action as necessary, since Stone would flee once aware of Hansen and Reeves's deaths. As they prepared to leave, Jamal's phone rang. Stone was on the line. In a controlled tone, Stone informed Jamal that he was aware Hansen and Reeves had failed to return, and that Jamal was responsible for their deaths. Stone also stated that Jamal was now classified as a fugitive, and outlined what he considered to be Jamal's remaining options: surrender and face life imprisonment, or attempt to reach him and be killed under what Stone would claim as lawful self-defense. Jamal responded calmly and ended the call. Cain noted that this confirmed Stone expected an imminent confrontation. After the deaths of Hansen and Reeves, both Jamal and Cain concluded that Captain Stone already suspected that the operation had failed. Stone retained the option to call reinforcements or flee, meaning any confrontation had to occur the same night. Cain proposed a method to gain access to Stone's property. He would use his active patrol credentials to stage an unscheduled visit, relying on the fact that his name still appeared in internal rosters. When security opened the gate for him, Jamal would exit the trunk of the car unnoticed, bypass the cameras, and enter through a vulnerable section of the basement. At 1:30 a.m., they approached Stone's residence, located outside Cleveland city limits. The property included a metal fence, automatic gates, multiple cameras, and floodlights. A guard booth housed 2 armed security personnel, both of whom were identified by Cain as former police officers. Cain presented his badge and stated that Stone had requested a briefing regarding the Porter case. One guard confirmed the identity check by radio. Stone responded with audible caution, noting he had not summoned Cain, but nonetheless instructed security to allow him inside. While the gate opened, Jamal silently exited the trunk. He wore dark clothing, body armor, and carried a Glock and a knife. He moved along the perimeter of the house, staying outside camera coverage. Using low posture and timed movements, he reached a basement window that was slightly ajar. He opened it further, entered the dark basement, used a flashlight to navigate, and located the stairs leading upward. As he approached the basement door, he heard muffled voices indicating that Cain and Stone were in the office on the main floor. Jamal carefully opened the door a slight amount. The hallway outside was lit and empty. From the office, he heard Stone informing Cain that he was aware of Cain's involvement with Jamal. Stone stated he had monitored Cain's earlier position on a rooftop near the warehouse and had concluded that Cain had brought Jamal to the property. Jamal recognized that Stone had already reconstructed the situation and determined that immediate intervention was necessary. Jamal entered the office rapidly with his weapon raised. Stone, seated at his desk, had a pistol within reach, but had not yet grabbed it. A guard positioned near the doorway began to draw his gun. Jamal assessed the threats and fired first, injuring the guard's shoulder and incapacitating him. Stone attempted to reach for his own weapon, but Jamal's second shot struck his hand, preventing further movement. Cain drew his Sig Sauer and secured the room. Sounds of movement from the hallway indicated that the second guard was approaching. Cain barricaded the door. Jamal restrained Stone and demanded the location of the money and documents. Stone, while injured, indicated that his safe was built into a wall behind a painting and identified it by code. Jamal verified this by removing the painting, entering the sequence, and opening the safe. Inside were stacks of cash estimated at around $200,000, along with documents and flash drives that appeared to contain transaction records, contact lists, and financial transfers. There was no gold present. Stone stated that the gold had remained at Hansen's residence due to the risk of attempting to move it. The door then shifted under repeated force from the second guard. Cain fired 2 rounds through the wood. The struggle on the other side stopped. With limited time remaining, Jamal focused on Stone. In Jamal's assessment, Stone was the architect of the plan that had resulted in Valerie's death, and he viewed Stone as directly responsible for initiating violence against her. Stone attempted to negotiate by offering to disclose names of officials involved in misconduct networks, including individuals in the prosecutor's office and judiciary. Jamal regarded these offers as irrelevant to the loss he had sustained. He fired 3 rounds into Stone's chest, ending the confrontation. Cain urged immediate departure due to approaching sirens. Jamal collected the documents and flash drives from the safe, considering them potential leverage. They exited through a rear service door. As they reached the gate, the second guard, previously wounded, aimed at them from the ground and fired, striking Jamal in the shoulder above his armor. Jamal returned fire, eliminating the threat. Cain assisted him to the car, then drove at high speed, breaking through the gates and leaving the property before law enforcement units arrived. During the 40-kilometer drive to a remote cabin owned by Cain's late father, Jamal experienced significant blood loss. Cain provided emergency treatment after parking the vehicle, using a pressure bandage and injectable pain relief. The wound had passed through soft tissue without damaging bone. By dawn, Cain had disinfected and sutured the injury and administered antibiotics. Jamal remained conscious intermittently. Later that morning, helicopters could be heard overhead, indicating the beginning of a large-scale search. Cain checked public news releases through his phone. Early reports identified a deceased police captain, 2 dead officers, and a wanted suspect named Valerie Porter. A federal warrant had already been issued. Cain concluded that remaining together increased the risk of capture. He stated that he would attempt to report himself as having been forced to cooperate under duress, with the intention of disconnecting his legal exposure from Jamal's. He urged Jamal to leave the United States and assume a new identity. Jamal expressed doubt that Cain could construct a plausible defense, but Cain stated that he would accept that risk and remain because of his professional status. Whereas Jamal needed to survive for reasons connected to Valerie's memory. Jamal handed Cain the documents and flash drives taken from Stone's safe, instructing him to use them for leverage if authorities attempted to prosecute him. Jamal also provided half of the recovered gold to support legal costs. Cain resisted, but Jamal insisted that Cain had already sacrificed his career and safety and required resources to defend himself. Cain eventually accepted. Jamal then reflected on the outcome. 4 men dead, including the individuals responsible for his wife's death. Jamal acknowledged that he felt no relief and believed that part of him had disappeared with Valerie. Cain responded that retaliation rarely produced emotional closure, but argued that Jamal had provided a form of justice that the formal system had failed to deliver. Cain told him to continue living and not allow Valerie's death to become meaningless. That night, Cain transported Jamal to an unmonitored section of the Canadian border. Local smugglers, compensated with part of the remaining gold, guided Jamal across a forested area without official inspection. Jamal carried a backpack containing approximately $40,000 worth of gold, a false identity document, and a photograph of Valerie. At the edge of the woods, Jamal and Cain shook hands. Cain told him to build a life far from the events of Ohio and never return. Jamal entered the forest and disappeared from sight. 6 months later, in June 2023, news releases indicated that Cain had been acquitted, with the court ruling that there was insufficient evidence to prove voluntary participation in the events. He was reinstated as a detective. In reality, he had spent months under investigation and used the documents obtained from Stone to implicate multiple corrupt officials, trading the information in exchange for immunity. Although officially cleared, he remained under informal scrutiny by colleagues. Valerie Porter remained a federally wanted fugitive with a posted reward. No credible sightings were reported.